Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. Okay, let's continue our series on the bandsaw box. So, in our last episode, we made this box here. I showed you the 5-cut method and how to make a drawer. In fact, I showed you this on several boxes. If you take a look, here's one I did. Here's one I did. This one has a divider in it. So I showed you how to do a simple open drawer and how to put an actual simple divider in your drawer if you want, making the drawer big enough. So now that I've made all these boxes, and all these boxes have one thing in common, and that is they were all made from a piece of 2x4. So now we have all these boxes, and now I'm thinking, what am I going to do with these boxes? And if you remember, that's what I told you, to put your OTB hat on, because we're going to go over some things you can do. Where do we go from here? As far as these boxes go, there's lots of things you can do with it. I've touched on one. This thing here, put a couple magnets on the back. And now I have a little magnet box that I can put on the refrigerator, on my bandsaw, or in lots of different places. You make it into a little refrigerator magnet box. The size of magnet you use and all that type of thing will depend upon how heavy your box is and how big your box is. You can make it an open tray instead. Instead of making a box, just make an open tray. Put your magnets on it and clip it. Now you have a little tray that you clip to somewhere. So, and this is just 4 cuts instead of 5 or something like that. Anyway, they're easy to make most of the time. Right now we're focusing on the drawer style box. Now we have to decide, what do we do with these? Well, there is something else you can do with these things too, believe it or not, that's really cool I've been thinking about. First off, let's talk about the drawer itself and the magnet. One of the things about bandsaw boxes like this that I have found is when you tip it just a little bit, that's what happens. These things can fall out. So if you pick them up, especially if you have more than one in your hand, and you start to move them, look out. They start falling out. So, and that can be a kind of a pain. And somebody gave me the idea about using magnets. And I thought, oh, that actually worked pretty slick. So what if you took and put a little magnet. Now this magnet in particular is 5/16 in diameter, and it's a 1/16 of an inch thick. These are the little magnets that I get from Harbor Freight. It's a pack of 10 for like $3. So I got 30 cents here. If you take this and glue it to the inside of your box, here I put a little number 10 flat washer on there. And now when I put this in there, that drawer stays right there. It still comes open pretty easy, but once I put that in there, it closes on nice and tight, and it stays closed for me until I want to open it. That little magnet for 30 cents more, well, 32 if you count the washer too. For 32 cents, that really is a great improvement on these little boxes. Now, one of the things you can do with these, besides now you have this nice little box, what if we take these boxes in this size and let's stack them up? So now that I have all these boxes, I could just very neatly match them up, line them all up, and I have this nice little array of boxes. And that's not a bad little box there with all these little boxes. Again, a lot of shaping and a lot of sanding. You could come up with something that looks really very nice when you get done, especially if you predetermine your lengths and everything ahead of time. I just freehand cut these to whatever I had. I wasn't measuring anything. All this was done by eye. But if you can see how you could very uniformly mold these all into one box. After you glue them all up, come back here and then cut the outside figure to the shape you want. And it's all built very simply from a simple 5-cut bandsaw box. Once you learn how to do a simple 5-cut box, you'd be amazed at what you can do with it. So now you say, well, that looks okay. But what if we took this and I put one there, and I put one there, one there, and one there. And I glued them up just like that. How cute would that look on your bench then if you saw this all stacked up and say, oh, isn't that cute? One little box, nice little drawers to put little trinkets in, and it's all still together, but it gives you a real nice eye catcher. It's not boring at all. Or maybe, what if we put two of them this way and stack them up to give us more of a T? Or maybe stack them this way and put it in that shape. That's an interesting looking box with multiple drawers. So these little boxes actually can be very handy, and I think that with a little imagination, and once you glue them up, put them together maybe, and glue up to make shapes, and then you cut out the final shape of the board, of the whole thing, you'd be amazed at what you can come up with. And let me show you an example. One of the things that I would do with this, and we're going to do right away, is another thing you can do now that you've learned to do this, is we're going to scale up. Because now we're going to go from this to this very quickly and easily. The only difference is that instead of using a 2x4, we're going to be using a good old-fashioned 4x4 post that you can get from a big box store. And they put one of these, you can make 10 or 12 of these out of one 8-foot board. Or if you want to take it to a new level, take two of the pieces and glue them together, and now this thing is double the depth on the drawer by doing it this way. So you can actually get, now this is a good size box, but that's not it. You can go from this, using the same method, all the way to this. Now this came out of, you know, whose office. I gave this to her, or I sold it to her. I honestly don't remember. It was many years ago when she was just my accountant. And she wanted one of these. When she saw these, she loved it. And when I came up with the idea of this, she wanted something like this. So this one here was the gnarliest board I could find at the big box store. You can see all the knots and everything in the gnarliness. Look at the top of this drawer. See the top? That's just cut right out of there. But it actually was pretty nice looking. It's actually nice looking. But it has that gnarly look to it because of all the badness of the wood. Me, if you buy 4x4 posts, you want to look for some of the gnarly ones. Also, I like to look for where it gets this right here, and it really works well is when it's kind of in the center. Now here I took, and don't ignore your end grain on your boxes. If I cut this piece and I flipped it, I came out with this book matched end on this end of the box. So from here, this looks pretty good with all the knots and everything. I got a real nice looking end. This end is a little bit blah, but that's okay. It's still a very nice looking box. And it's a nice sized drawer that you can divide up into multiple sections. And no, I didn't forget, we're going to make a 4-compartment drawer. And I'm going to show you how to do that with a tray in it. So you have 3 compartments and a tray over 1 compartment to give you 4 separate areas. So you can go all the way now. If you think about it, just by thinking about it, you should be able to go from this to this very easily by going from this to this. And you can still do all of this on a small 10-inch Rikon bandsaw. This box is just as easy to make as this. Well, I don't know about easy, but it can be done very slow and carefully. You'll be able to do it. But you have to try. So what I would do is go down, buy yourself some 2x4s, get one board, cut it into 5-inch pieces or something, and make like 15 or 16 or 20, however many you can get out of a 2x4, of little boxes like this. Then you can try to put together some kind of project to make them into a small box. You can even take these and just do something as simple as this. Put the drawers back to back, turn them each level by 90 degrees, or you could just put them this way and keep piling them up so that you either go in from here or spin it around. Or if you turn them like this and you keep alternating your pair of drawers, then you would have drawers on all 4 levels. Just put a little handle to turn it so you can get to any of the drawers that you want. You can get a lot of little drawers in one little compact area by stacking them up. So this is not a bad way of doing it, and you can scale this up to a 4x4 and come out with a box that is actually very suitable for any jewelry type box or office supply box that you want to make. Plenty big. So you got to think outside the box to be able to do these things. And all these are done with the same exact 5 cuts that I've shown you a couple of times already. So time to move up. Also, the magnet that I showed you here, you can very easily do the same thing with a box like this or like the double deep box. All thing that you do different is instead of using the 5/16 magnets, I would go to a 1/2 inch or a 5/8 inch diameter magnet and use 2 of them. So that when you put it in, both of them are pulled in together so it keeps it straight, pulling it in straight too. But a little couple magnets on this and it can prevent that from happening even to a bigger drawer box like this or like this. Very little money. I've never done it before. That idea came up when somebody suggested it to me in my last video about magnets, and thank you, Deuce, for that idea. And from now on, I'm probably going to incorporate some kind of magnetic system into the back of my drawers, I think, to keep them from doing this all the time. I hate it when it does that. So, anyway, the other thing I want to mention real quick, if you'll notice that this drawer only goes in one way. So, that's what I was telling you. No matter how good you make your drawer and you look at it when you're done, follow your line, when you get done, that drawer will still only fit in there one way. And you want to make sure it fits in nicely. So we're going to take this box, we'll take an episode, and I'm going to show you how to do the glue up and how to do the fitting. Because before you do any final sanding or anything to this, the first thing you want to do is get your drawer put together, get your box and your drawer all sanded out and fitting very nicely. Then you glue the back on. So we'll go over that in detail later on. But this is just some of the ideas that you can do with bandsaw boxes. And you can make boxes like this all day long with an even with a very small bandsaw. So don't be afraid. Get your blades out. As far as the blades that you use, I like to use the 3/16 inch blade mostly, but the 1/4 inch blade will work. When you get into your 4x4 material, you might want to upgrade that blade to a little wider blade. It's going to cut down your radius that you can turn on your corners, but because the box is bigger, this corner here can be made with a 1/4 inch blade. I couldn't do this box with a 1/4 inch blade. You got to have a 3/16 or even an 1/8 inch blade to make this box. And you could do this box with an 1/8 inch blade if your bandsaw will take them. Now, I've never put an 1/8 inch on mine, but then that's a pretty good size bandsaw there. It's a full 14 inch bandsaw with a 9 inch blade height, I believe it has. So I can cut a pretty big chunk of wood. In fact, I've made some pretty good sized boxes on that thing. But I'll tell you what, that is a pain. And you're not going to have fun until the first time you get a blade to pop off the wheel while you're in the middle of doing the cut. That is such a pain, but I can't even help you with that. That's just going to take time and practice, and you'll learn pretty quickly to be very careful about pulling back on that box after you pushed it through. You're not going to pull back very far, because if you start to, if that blade is binding at all, it'll drag that blade right off of that wheel, and then there you are with that blade stuck through that box and not on the bandsaw. You don't even want to deal with that if you can help it. So, but when you do, just be patient. You have to be able to take it apart, get that blade off of that box, and you just, whatever it takes, you have to work at it. Sometimes the blade is okay when you do that. Sometimes you will have tweaked the blade to where it really isn't going to work very well anymore. So, you just have to learn. So start with some inexpensive blades, I would. And that's why I like the 3/16 blade. And I buy Timberwolf blades. I also used to use a lot of Wood Slicer brand. And I will tell you, wood slicers, I think, give you a better resaw cut. But for bandsaw box type work, I kind of like the Timberwolf a little better. Olson makes a good brand. I've used some of their blades too. But again, I always seem to go back to that Timberwolf. Maybe that's because, and I've been using Timberwolf for years and years now. And one of the main reasons why I probably do might be because my bandsaw, it's a Powermatic. It was made in like 2000, somewhere around the year 2000, 1999. And when I bought it, it was a 102-inch blade on it. And if you look out there now at all the different bandsaws out there, this particular model, and they stopped using the 102-inch blade in 04 or 05, and they changed the design of their unit again. So it's a very limited amount to take that size blade. I can find that blade in Timberwolf all the time without any problem. So the Timberwolf blade is something that I tend to go to most of the time. Like I said, there's a lot of different ones out there that are all fairly good. Stay away from the no-name brands. They probably won't last as long, but if the price is right, go ahead, because you will go through blades too. That's why you want to start small. Get a feel for what you can and can't do when you're making corners and things like that. And when you pop it off, it'll be a lot easier to deal with the mess you'll have with trying to get your blade out of a half-cut box. So start with boxes this size. Use your 2x4. If you can cut out these boxes, after you can do this pretty easily, when you transition to the 4x4 post, they'll be very easy to do. So I don't know what else I can tell you about this part of it, but try to do the boxes like this. On my next episode, I'm going to take some 4x4. We're going to move up so you can start seeing some really good stuff. Some practically usable boxes. This box right here, I have made hundreds of this box right here. The single drawer out of one 2x4. And I've sold so many of these, and they just would sell as fast as I could make them, be honest with you, at the craft shows. People love these boxes, and they're really not hard to make. So you might want to consider this as one of your bandsaw boxes to be able to make. Now, the only lamination you have to do then to make a bigger box is just two pieces together, which is an easy lamination. We'll talk about lamination sooner or later. If you remember, this box here is a good example of a laminated box. And this box here is actually 7.5 inches. But you could do this box on a 10-inch Raycon bandsaw still. All you do is that when you talk about cut number 1, your back lamination, leave it off. Then just go ahead and go to the side like this. Cut out your drawers, because now you're less than 6 inches here. So you'll be able to cut these drawers out still. And you'll still be able to clear the back of your bandsaw frame, so that you'll still be able to cut this out as you spin it around, cutting these out in this orientation. Then when you get done, and you cut the outside, again, it's like this. So after you cut your drawers out, you get everything cleaned up and sanded down, put your back on it, put your drawers in it, and now you have a full-size box that you made on a very small bandsaw still. So your depth of cut is the only thing that you're probably more limited to than what I can make with mine. Now, don't get me wrong, I can make a bigger one. In fact, here's one of my past blanks that I have made. This thing here, it's 1-inch oak, all laminated together. I think I have 6 of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is right at about 6 inches wide. And it's about 10 inches by 11 inches or something like that. This is a monster, and the thing weighs a ton. This I would not cut out on a 10-inch bandsaw. It's way too big, and it's hard wood. I will have a hard time doing this on my bandsaw. I've done a few of these, and it is a lot of hard work. As a result, I have learned making smaller boxes and joining them together is so much more fun than trying to make it out of one big block of wood like this and make your bandsaw box. Like I said, I have made several like this, but they are not. I would tend to do using a bigger block material, sizing your blocks smaller, make it your individual drawer as individual boxes, and join them together like Legos. You know, stack them up. So, and you can get really creative stacking your blocks. Now, let me say one more thing before I let you go. I hope you've kind of seen what we can do and where we can end up with just a little bit of imagination. But you have to also, we're going to have to talk about several different things when it comes to making bandsaw boxes. We got to talk about your strategy of your cuts. When you make your drawer cuts, you have to predetermine where you're going to go in for your cut and how you're going to come out. Are you going to have an open area for the drawer? And you can do that several different ways too. If I took a block of wood and put it this way and cut my drawers out here, I could come in from the side for my entry point for my drawers and even keep it open and get an open look from the side on here on my drawers. If you look at Lois Keener Ventura's book, that first one she made in 2000, Building Beautiful Bandsaw Boxes, I think is the title. It was the first one she ever made. If I could find my copy of it, I would show it to you. I cannot find mine. It's around here somewhere. I'm afraid that it's in no man's land. It's probably where all those socks go from the dryer. So anyway, if I ever find it, I'll show it to you and you can see what I'm talking about. But if you get a chance to buy that book, by far, it is the best book you could get if you want to start making bandsaw boxes. And she'll show you techniques. She'll show you how to plan your cutting, show you how to go through and plan your cuts. And we'll, like I said, we'll talk about that also. We're also going to talk about your strategy of your material, how you want to shape your box, and when do you want to shape your box, and when do you want to cut out the drawers, and those types of things. All those things you want to kind of work through as you go along, because this basic box can barely be turned into a nice looking little box like this very easily with a nice curvature top to it if that's what you want. You can make it narrow with several drawers in it. There's lots of different designs out there. And then if you start laminating your woods together, for example, if you took a piece of this and just cut it down the middle, then put a 1-inch piece of board in between, then you would have 3.5, you'd have a 4.5-inch deep box with one racing stripe down the center of it. And that's a nice look for a box. Dave Picciuto does that a lot. He puts his opposing wood in the center so that you get that racing stripe look on it. He's a big fan of that, and I am too. I would love to do that with something like with OSB, because the edge grain on OSB is very unique. And when you look at it, you can't believe that it looks like OSB. And if you do it right, you won't see the face of that OSB. You only see the edge grain of it. And that'll get everybody looked at that. I remember, and they used to say, "What is that? What kind of wood is that?" And because nobody could figure out that it was just good old-fashioned OSB plywood. So there's lots of things. Open up your imagination. Stay with smaller boards for now if you're just new to this. If you've been doing this for a while and you want to start using 4x4 posts, it's a great base material to build from. I've actually learned to like this better than doing it by laminating 3/4 inch or 1 inch pieces together. I think this is a much better surface, a substance to use. You do have to watch out for the grain splitting on a 4x4 post. See, there's a split. And you can see how that split went all the way through. But it hasn't affected the box. The box is still fine. If I thought I was having a problem, then I would just put some kind of mini bow tie on here or something if I would need to. But I don't think it's necessary. I've had several that do have cracked on it, and that's fine. They still look nice. I don't never make these perfect. Most of the time, like this one, you can see all the bandsaw marks on the wood a little bit. It's hard to sand it all out because if you sand too much, your gap in here gets to be really wide. And you want to be careful of that sort of thing. Not getting it to be too wide of a gap, or it really makes that box look funny. The tighter, you see how tight I am on these boxes? That's what you really want to try to achieve. But that's harder to achieve, this tight line right here on a box, without a little bit of practice to do that. So get your wood, get a 2x4, get a 4x4, and get to work. See what you can do with it, and see what kind of creation you can come up with. And once we've learned to do once you've mastered the 5-cut box method, then we're going to get into some weird things like this. I still do this with 5 cuts. All we did to make this box is change which cuts we do at what time. The order of the cuts has been changed in order to make this box. But this box can be made just as easily as a drawers type box can. And what else is kind of cool? I don't think I mentioned this, so I'm going to mention this real quick. Is if you wanted to take a box and make something really, really cool from it that's unusual, I do have this one that I made too. Now this one is very strange in how I made it, but it's a very unique looking box, and I wanted to make sure this one, I made sure I incorporated this gnarly knot into my box when I did it. This took a lot of thinking, but this actually isn't too bad of a design overall, and it's something to improve on if you wanted to. The other thing that I was thinking about you could do with the making boxes, you can take small boxes like this, make yourself a nice little open box like this. Take your upper box, again, you want them shaped to be the same, but then you can take your box with a drawer and mount it right on top of the open box like this. Put a couple of wood hinges on here, on the back, and now what you have is a single box drawer, and when you open it up, you have a nice little open keepsake box with an extra drawer. And that would be easy to do. And there's a box made from bandsaw boxes that I've never seen anybody make. So there's just hundreds of different ways you can take your idea and twist it around and do some very unusual things. Build your blocks together. When you cut them out, make sure you have enough extra wood in the right places that you cut them and actually get them to fit to each other. I'd love to make a box, and I've been thinking about how to do that, is to make these to where they're stackable and they actually join together like a puzzle. It's just food for thought. So I have taken these, again, mostly what I've done with this stuff has been with this size box, so not with these small ones. But you could even take and put little bamboo or small dowels and set them apart from each other so they look like the ones standing there without anything in between them. And you could stack them that way. And again, I don't like to keep them straight. I like to put them in different directions like that so that it looks like they're just barely stacked up, but when you pick it up, it's all one drawer still. So keep in mind, use your imagination. As you can see, there's lots to do. I could sit here and talk for hours about different ideas, and I'm sure I will over the period of doing these. But this should give you enough information now to get started and to be able to make some useful bandsaw boxes very easily with nothing more than the 5-cut method. And then you can go from this all the way to this after you practice a little bit, I think. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. If you have any ideas, suggestions, any thoughts, leave them down below. I love to read them all. I really enjoy it. And thank you for your ideas, because it helps me to do even better. Like with the magnet trick. Again, thank you, Deuce, for that. But anyway, leave your comments. I do read them all and enjoy it. If you learned something here or you like this video, hit that like button. It lets me know that I'm doing something right. Most importantly, though, please come back again, and you might want to bring coffee, because some of these do go on for a while. But hopefully it's worthwhile, and to tell you the truth, I'm nowhere near done. Thanks. See you guys again very soon.